watching this last night, every 30 seconds had total disinfo, total lies, total fraud. There's no way this guy couldn't know what he was doing. There's no way making a film about Building 7 that you couldn't know what it was, unless the person is just in abject denial. Jason Bermas is in studio with us, and he has had a chance to fully, repeatedly watch the latest BBC hit piece, and I had a chance to watch it last night. Every minute or so, I had to stop it and was shaking my head, just when I think I can't be amazed at the disinfo. There's an article up on prisonplanet.com right now that only covers, I'd say, 2% of the baloney. And this one article is devastating to them. How they would edit Silverstein out to say, we gave the order to pull it, then they'd cut to somebody saying, the firefighters, instead of, and then we watch the building come down. Or they would edit Barry Jennings, or they would, this thing, they would not show the BBC news clip in full where they're saying Building 7 has fallen, it fell in its own footprint. They would just say what she said. Folks, and that's only one facet. In this segment, the next, and then the third segment before our next guest comes on, you've got 5 pages of notes. Try to quickly go through those, and then at the end, I'm going to comment on it, Jason.
All right. Well, let's start with Barry Jennings first of all. Now, they bring Barry in very, very early, and they totally misrepresent his timeline. For instance, they go with the official version every time. In other words, Barry didn't get there until both planes had hit the World Trade Center. You watch our interview? No, he got there after the first plane hit. He was in the building prior to the second plane hit. But that's important because they need their lying timeline to say that they evacuated the OEM after the second plane hit the World Trade Center. They also make it look like Barry Jennings was absolutely alone. Now, we know that Michael Hess was with him, and that's the City Corporation Council. Now, they actually even did a reenactment of what he did. And they don't let Barry say when he gets there or how he got up there. They manipulate his statements. On top of that, Alex, when he talks about the explosion on the 6th floor, all they let him say is the landing gave way. In other words, they don't let him talk about the explosion, and then they immediately go to the North Tower just fell. So they don't even let him tell his side of the story. They just say, no, that failed.
These are very tight edits.
Very tight edits.
Very tight to distort what's been said, and we're video editors. We know when we put out the Barry Jennings, it was big, long clips. With this, very distorted.
Absolutely, and they actually did a reenactment. You know, that was the only part where there was an actual reenactment. So they gloss over the fact that he's with Michael Hess. They gloss over his timeline. They gloss over the fact that he says that he was in the building when both towers fell on that 8th floor after the explosion, which was an explosion inside the building.
That is key. There was an explosion before Tower 1 or 2. The North or South Tower fell, and they all slickly edited that so that you don't get that.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to other facets of this total hit piece. For instance, they say that Building 7 took a direct hit. Now, they do actually show the video inside Building 7 that we have, where they go up the escalator, but then they cut away and they say that it showed massive damage on the south side of the building. No, it didn't. There were a couple of doors that were blown out. That was it.
And they don't, blown out, not in, and they don't show the massive damage.
No, absolutely, because there is no massive damage at that point.
We have the footage, yes.
Yes. Another dirty trick that they played is that they said that they had new photographs, and they had this photographer there. Now, they don't have the photograph scanned in, so they don't edit. They literally have the guy holding the photograph, and they kind of zoom in on it. It's shaky cam.
Which makes it even more deceptive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay there. I want to get to this when we get back, folks. I mean, I think they've completely blown it. I mean, what they've produced will create 1,000 times more questions. It's like they wanted to act suspicious and deceptive. It's almost like they're on our side, but we know they're not. It's just the enemy. That's who they've got, is these quacks, these nobodies. I mean, these guys, they're charlatans. We'll be right back with Jason Bermas as we debunk the pathetic debunkers. I was shaking my head last night, physically, just laughing, and I kept pausing it and saying, is this really happening? Is this what they're doing? Editing what Larry Silverstein had to say, editing what Jennings had to say, cutting everything short, distorting. That's why they've lost all credibility. That's why the mainstream media is imploding. That's why Congress has less than a 10% approval rating for the first time in its history. It's over. I mean, this makes the discrediting of the government under Nixon look like child's play. The people know you're murdering criminals. The people know you carried out the attacks. And your little hitmen, your little hatchet men, your little media intellectual prostitutes aren't going to get you out of it. There's nothing you can do. Bermas, continue with the incredible disinformation frenzy that we were witnessing.
Yeah, so we're talking about this supposed new picture. Now, as they're showing it, and again, it's not scanned in.
They won't scan it in. It's a shaky...
It's a shaky handy cam. The guy's holding it and pointing. It does not match up with the famous Popular Mechanics photo that they're the only ones that had with this side of the building heavily damaged. Doesn't match up with it at all.
And let's be clear, that building is gray when 7 was brick red. I remember when I first saw that in the magazine, I was standing in the grocery store. I heard it was coming out. I went to get one, and I was going, my God, that's a gray building. That's the World Financial Center across the street. Oh. I mean, these people. Continue.
All I can say is that it definitely didn't match up with this photograph with the supposed maximum damage and scooping out. Now, let's get to Silverstein for a second. Now, they go over the Pullet comment, but then they edit out the second half where he says, and we watched the building collapse. Now, this is what I thought was interesting. They mentioned that it was to pull the firefighters, right? And they kind of back him up on that, but then they go to Daniel Nigro, and they asked Daniel Nigro if they would have conferred with Larry Silverstein to pull the firefighting operation. He's like, no. He's like, we don't need to take orders from Larry Silverstein to move our firefighters in and out. So they basically debunked the fact that him saying pull the firefighters was real, but then they didn't make it a point. They just kind of moved on. In other words, they didn't stop.
It's a whitewash. Now, I mean, it's kind of like the Australian news is saying it was a plan to kill 200 of our troops. The U.S. wanted to nerve gas them, and we said no. And they say it might have been illegal to kill them, but then here in the U.S. and England they did it. You know, but still, it kind of just puts it out there like, well, there was a plan, but we didn't do it. Meanwhile, there's all these reports where they did do it in other nations. Just so it's all just kind of a getting it out in the open. Now, the important area to all of this is that. The official reports admit the firefighters were pulled out early in the morning before the other towers fell. We've got Giuliani admitting that with Peter Jennings and later lying and saying he didn't say it. Then the tapes were later brought out on NBC News. So again, in every case, they're lying. Now they're basically coming back in this piece and not getting into the fact that officially the firefighters were pulled before the Tower 1 or 2 fell, many hours before they claimed they pulled them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Absolutely. And let me say this. They actually did show the thermal imagery. Now, they didn't mention molten metal at all. Now, they say 5 days later that the thermal imagery proved, Alex.
How about 5 weeks?
Was it 5 weeks?
Well, it was week after week.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean the 5-day satellite shots. They admitted that was 747 degrees Celsius. Now, they say 747 degrees Celsius because the normal person hears that, it was thousands of degrees hot in the World Trade Center. But that's Fahrenheit, folks. Okay, so they confuse it there and they gloss over that. They don't talk about molten metal. Then they say that the upper floors were engulfed in flames, okay, of World Trade Center Building 7.
But we have the new NIST report saying they were isolated.
I know, again, total. They don't bring the NIST report in until the last 10 minutes of the film. The last 20 is a total debunk love fest, by the way.
Yeah, we're cult members.
Oh, God. No, it's a religion, Alex. You know, it's not hardcore scientific fact. Apparently, we worship something.
Yeah, we don't have all these physicists and engineers and scientists and underwriting laboratory engineers who were fired for not shutting up. Mm-hmm. You know, they wanted to be fired for this imaginary religion 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
I mean, Kevin Ryan, he just, and the professors, they all wanted to be fired.
Yeah.
And
Stephen Jones wanted to retire early.
Yeah, because of the religion of 9/11. No, it's their religion. We'll be right back.